baseball is dead.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace to the Los Angeles Dodgers in Game 1. Jay Hay, an absolute bludgeoning at the hands of the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
The 6 was on fire. The Blue Jays beat the absolute brakes off the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah.
It was really all about one inning. I mean, I know the scoreboard, the box score is going to tell you a different story. It looks a little different. It looks probably a little more gaudy than it really was, maybe. But one inning and the wheels fell off. We talked about what the separating factors were going to be in this series. And it was really a tale of two offenses who could hold their own, whether it was going to be a slugfest of sorts or it was going to be a quick delivery of knockout blows, one after the other. You felt like either team was probably capable of doing so, but you also knew that what the Dodgers had in waiting was an incredible starting rotation that has performed in otherworldly fashion throughout this entire postseason. And I think it was going to be about the exposure of bullpens, when that was going to come, in what fashion that was going to show up, and how these bullpens were going to be able to weather the storms they found themselves navigating. And in Game 1, it was really about one moment. You and I talked about it. We had an incredible partner in Josh Donaldson join us on the stream
that
tonight,
was awesome.
which was fucking awesome. And as we watched this game unfold, it really did. It boiled down to a conversation that you and I and Jared had, a conversation that JD and I had that we were talking about, and it was one inning. It was whether or not the Dodgers rotation was going to be able to give them 6+ innings every time out. And if so, the series looks maybe a little differently than it already does, starting at the hands of an 11-4 beating. But Blake Snell unable to get through a 6th inning, which found him leave the ball game with a lot of traffic on the bases. And it was a couple big swings that did a lot of the damage. But before that moment had came, Jay Hay, it was a swing from Dalton Varsho, who tied the ball game 2-2. You had a great nug on it. It was the first time since 2024, June 3rd of 2024, that Blake Snell had given up a homer against a lefty, to hell on a four-seam fastball or anything, just period. So there were already like things happening. There was already a little magic dust starting to get sprinkled on the ball game, and then boom, the fucking eruption, the volcanic offensive eruption from the Blue Jays.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but in terms of like the unique stuff that was happening historically, but it just felt, and we were talking about it on the stream, Snell was not the same level of sharp that he had been in his previous starts, and that showed itself very early. And we were commenting about, it's impressive in it. It was a little premature. It turns out to have called it impressive given what his stat line ended up being. But at the time we were saying it was impressive that he was able to grind out as much as he had, given how rough the start was and how clearly he did not have his A-level command going in this start. And I just there are some blowouts that have the feel of an immediate blowout. Maybe that's because the runs are scored immediately, or just because the game becomes lopsided over the course of multiple innings early on. This did feel like a blowout that the Blue Jays earned. In no way am I saying it isn't that, but it did feel like one that could have possibly gone in a different direction, in a different world, right? If like this did really hinge on one inning in a lot of ways, and now that inning became a 9-run inning, and historically significant in its own right, for scoring 9 runs in one inning. But to your very initial point, there was more tension in this game for the first 50% of it than the final score would lead you to believe. And I do think that the Blue Jays deserve an enormous amount of credit, because it did feel like for the first 5 innings that the Dodgers were actually really positioned pretty well here to take advantage of this situation from a bullpen management standpoint, from the fact that Yasevich had to leave the game after, was taken out of the game after 4 innings, and they immediately had to start working the bullpen for the final 5. And the entire narrative of that was turned on its head, mostly in the 6th, but to your point, starting with the Varsho home run. I think it's an emphatic win, obviously.
An emphatic win, emphatic swings, and Jay, if you're looking for more emphatic wins, my friend, look no further than the Underdog fantasy app, because as you know, the MLB postseason is in full swing, and plenty of full big swings occurring this offseason or postseason. And Underdog Fantasy wants to make it a lot more interesting for you. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Playing their pick'em games is as simple as selecting higher or lower on the player's stats, strikeouts, total bases, homers, and so much more. Homers, Shohei, Varsho. Some are calling them judge time homers for Shohei. They don't matter. They're garbage time homers. Jay, I don't like to hear that. I'm not a fan of that. But in game 1, unfortunately, that's how things have unfolded. You can make your entries of all baseball, or you can mix and match. Doesn't matter. We got a lot of stuff going on. NBA season just kicked off. Go ahead and mix and match your favorite sports. You can win up to 100 times your money, and it's a ton of fun. A ton of fun. Underdog is available in 30 plus. That's right, 30 plus, including California, Texas, Canada. They also just launched Champions. It's our player versus player format. That's going down in Florida. So, Underdog Fantasy app, download, join the fun, and get in the mix. Make sure you sign up with promo code Jared to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a special pick on Underdog. That's Underdog Fantasy. Promo code Jared. So,
yes,
with the offensive outburst for the Toronto Blue Jays and the early exposure of the bullpen for the Toronto Blue Jays, Jay, is there a balance, do you believe, that they have already struck early enough here in game 1 where, hey, if we can beat the leather off the ball enough, we're not too concerned with who's coming out of that bullpen if it's a matter of eating innings? Because Josh Donaldson and I were both talking about it, and you were chomping right at the bit. I know the thought was there for you. Like, how are we going to, and when I say we, how are the Blue Jays going to take care of the remaining outs that were left on the bone there once the game really opened up? And Chris Bassett was an immediate option. And maybe in the ball game, I think Fisher came in the ball game. And maybe in the ball game, when I say late, I just mean late based on what we had assessed. But is there a pathway, especially jumping out here to an early 1-0 start? Is there a pathway for the Blue Jays should the offense be able to, I don't want to say sustain itself to an 11 runs per game effort, but if we're talking 5-6, do you like their ability with their bullpen in the shape it's in out of what happened in game 1 to compete here?
I mean, from a bullpen perspective, like I go to the Dodgers side immediately because I feel like this is obviously losing is the worst case scenario. But if you are painting like a nightmare scenario for the Dodgers, I feel like this outcome at least opens up that possibility, because the one thing, if we had identified a weakness for the Dodgers prior to the start of the postseason, it was the bullpen / the performance of the bullpen, right? And what we really hadn't had to see was a lot of bullpen activity outside of the spectacular play of Roki Sasaki, right? And that's all been really, really exciting. And these starting pitchers have mostly taken it to the finish line and then turned it over. And I think what this game reminded folks was that this bullpen is actually a significant question mark. And I know you brought it up during the stream, but they're missing definitely their best left-handed relief option for perhaps the entire World Series. And I'm not going to say that specifically was what caused this turn of events, but I do feel like the ineffectiveness of the bullpen in this game working out of the Snell jam and in general now brings into question, and just the fact that they had to absorb those innings now brings into the question and puts an enormous amount of pressure on the remaining portion of the Dodgers rotation that had to cover up so much in the previous series.
Yeah, because it's Banda, right? And it's not Vesia. And
Right.
then Banda touched. It was Sheehan who gave it up for Snell and was touched. Like it felt like that. It felt like the momentum was completely dominated by the Blue Jays in the moment, and there was just no ability for the Dodgers to go to a place that they felt comfortable enough in that mode. They couldn't get help. They could not get help in the most pivotal part of the game. And you said it. You can't put all the blame on not being able to go to Vesia in the moment. That just is what it is. Outside of that hiccup, though, it feels like, or when I say hiccup, outside of that moment, that blow up inning, which is a massive inning, it absolutely the difference maker in the game, the deciding factor in the ball game. I mean, you were fine after those two guys came in, after the Sheehan and Banda effort. What do you got?
Well, I just think, like, I was talking kind of a big game about like where Blake Snell's postseason could end up ranking among like all-time postseason runs, like before this start happened and like at the very beginning. And yes, we have identified the bullpen as a huge problem in this game, and that's obviously, where it ultimately completely collapsed. And Sheehan and Banda's work is obviously completely unacceptable in a World Series game. But like, Blake Snell has to, and I know I'm not saying he's avoiding it or that people won't talk about it, but he has to own a huge part of this, obviously, because he took the ball to start the sixth inning and promptly loaded the bases and recorded no outs. And it was a walk, it was a single, and it was a hit by pitch in an at bat that he feels like he just kind of like lost control of. And Chris Castellani on Twitter actually noted that they threw an enormous number of pitches out of the zone in that inning, and the Blue Jays swung at virtually none of them. And a lot was made of the Blue Jays' lack of swing and miss and their strikeout rate and how impressive that was. But what was impressive in that inning specifically was their refusal to chase out of the zone against a guy that they really could probably sense didn't have his best in zone stuff today.
And Jay, it just, oh man, it felt like that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like they were not able to, or they were able to apply the pressure. And I think what happened is Snell coming out of that fifth inning, and maybe it's crazy. Maybe this is a crazy take. Maybe it's not a crazy take. Snell, having been in a similar position before, almost experiencing sort of a, all right, I'm out of this moment. Am I going back out there? Like, was there an adrenaline dump and an expectation? Like maybe there's a move being made after I leave this ball, or after this inning. Am I done here? Maybe he felt like there was going to be a move made.
Yeah.
And then he goes back out there. And so I'm not saying it snuck up on him, but I'm saying maybe after finishing that inning and then going back out, you're thinking, all right, here we go. And it's not the same. It's just not that same attack mentality. It's more of a survival mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's fair. It's just, I just think ultimately it was very easy to get caught up in how spectacular the Dodgers starting rotation was. Like literally historically successful. The run that they had been on, whether you were looking at the beginning of the postseason or just the LCS. But we all knew that this bullpen was extremely suspect for a large portion of the season. And, you know, that it reared its ugly head or whatever cliche we want to use in game one, I just think I think it's fascinating from a narrative perspective and what level of pressure it puts on the Dodgers in game two and Yamamoto. And the last time we saw him pitch, how spectacular he was. So I'm pretty pumped to turn around in fucking like, I don't know, 8 hours and what, 16 hours and watch another baseball game.
Yeah, no, I think I think what I want to ask you next is something that we discussed with Chris Bassett specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And side note, very happy to see my boy out there dealing. Very happy to see Chris Bassett take the mound in a World Series. That is just fuck. I mean, yeah, good for him. Great for him. Very excited for that. We talked about whether or not that was going to be something that we saw sooner rather than later when we did see him. Is there anything to the fact that the Blue Jays again did have to tap in to multiple arms in their bullpen to secure the win? Or is it a nothing burger because it's a Chris Bassett to a Lauer finish of the ball game and you're not terribly concerned because are these guys that we're really going to be leaning on in the 8th and 9th?
Yeah.
Up one, down one. Like, so is that kind of where you feel like you look, whether it was Bassett giving us 3 innings or Fisher, Bassett, and Lauer giving us the 3 innings, you feel like it kind of is something that evens out?
I you can't say no concern, but to me, it's like not really even a factor in my thinking right now. I mean, obviously not as the manager of the Blue Jays, but in terms of your question about whether it's a concern, I think you had to bake into the cake going into this game that you were going to need minimum 3 innings, probably more like 4+ from your bullpen. And I think the Blue Jays knew that because there was nothing about Savage's track record which suggested that he was going to give you 6 innings, let alone 7 or 8. And so his 3 starts in the postseason have been 5 2/3, 4 and 5 1/3. And by pitches, he has maxed out at 87 in the postseason, and 2 of the 3 have not even hit 80. So I think in any against a Dodgers lineup like this, that while the 4 innings that he gave them were not spectacular in this game, I do feel like it was within the expected range in terms of quantity that should have been expected to be delivered. And to your point about who was used in this game and what it means moving forward, also part of their thinking is that Kevin Gausman is the next starting pitcher and is the guy going tomorrow. And if there is one pitcher in the rotation that you can't count on anybody for this necessarily, but you could have the highest hopes of delivering you 6, 7 innings in this start, it would be Gausman. So I think this lines up about as well as it could have for the Jays, and that a moderate bullpen usage game was part of the formula and part of the cake bake for the Jays in game one, regardless. Does that make sense? Like, do you feel me on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I do.
Because then you got then you got an off day on Sunday, right? So you got Gausman off day and then Bieber. So like, you can't guarantee anything, but I feel like this is good for the Blue Jays.
No,
sure.
you're, and that's why I feel like when I say steal the outs or I say steal the innings, that's exactly. I love the fact that Schneider had the confidence in saying, you know what, because honestly, it's twofold, right? Like, one, I'm getting the outs that I need. Maybe it's even threefold, Jay, because I'm getting the outs that I need. I'm getting the outs that I need from guys that are not necessarily leverage guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm also giving these other individuals experience and confidence, as short term as it may be, that, hey, you're a fucking option as well.
Yeah, you have pitched in the World Series, right?
Absolutely, brother.
Yep.
Absolutely. You are an out-getter in the World Series as well. So when that phone rings, you're damn right. I want you tighten your spikes because you think it's your phone that's ringing. I want that. So I can appreciate that as I just kind of work through this mentally as much as you want to think about preserving a bullpen. If you're looking for, it's not a silver lining because they won the ball game. They kicked the shit out of it.
Right.
Yeah, but if you want just another positive spin on it, it's, hey, not only did we win the ball game, but we got outs from guys that otherwise might not see action unless it's a ball game like this and we're on the other side of it. However, they've gotten this experience in a winning atmosphere as well.
And
at home.
Four of the 5 pitched well, right? Everybody but Fisher, basically. So that's another feel good thing as well.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So speaking of pitching well, Zbiotics, great pitch for you, Jay. Hey, let me tell you a little story about some stuff called pre-alcohol probiotic drink. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. That's right. It was invented by PhD scientists, individual much smarter, I won't say than you and I, absolutely much smarter than myself, Jay. Hey, you need folks to tackle rough mornings after having a great night out. Well, they enlisted some brainiacs to do just that. Here's how it works. When you go out, you have yourself a good time. Well, we know that alcohol can maybe get the best of you at times. Well, it gets converted into a toxic byproduct that sits right in your belly. Yes, Jay, it makes its way past those chompers of yours into the belly, and things start to get a little hairy. Well, pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. That's right. The eliminator, the closer, if you will. Just remember, to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, you drink responsibly and you will feel your best tomorrow. You know the drill. So you enlist prebiotic. You enlist our friends to get the job done for you. Just like when you need a game changer on the diamond, you need a game changer off the field as well. This is where you go. Pre-alcohol probiotic drink. We thank them for their support. We thank them for their efforts. Zbiotics, it breaks down the chemical that causes the hangovers. Contains, as implied, Zbiotics prevents those rough nights. So hang out with Zbiotics and enjoy yourself. Enjoy the night with no fear of what tomorrow has to bring. Speaking of what tomorrow has to bring, Jay, that is game 2. Game 2 tomorrow. Do you like the pitching matchup? It sounds like you really appreciate the fact the Jays have a Gausman to lean on going game 2.
Well, he's their best pitcher. So I think it's the Jays have some real feel-good stuff going on right now. Obviously, in a vacuum, I would prefer Yamamoto to Kevin Gausman. I think Yamamoto had a better season and is better, but it's close enough where I'm not sure it matters all that much. And I think it's a great situation to be in, and for all the reasons that we laid out before. I think on paper, just to kind of summarize all of these thoughts, this is the best pitching matchup that we could see in terms of on paper starting pitchers from both sides in the whole series. It's one of the 4 aces on one side, and it is the ace on the other side. All due respect to the current version of Shane Bieber, and Max Scherzer for that matter. But it's going to be. I'm looking forward to it, and I think all the pressure, so to speak. There's always pressure on both sides in the World Series. There's only 7 possible games, but Yamamoto has an enormous amount of pressure now on him, given obviously just the general expectations, but all the stuff we laid out about the level of bullpen tax that was absorbed for the Dodgers in this game, how much exposure they even want those people getting in the first place, and the fact that they're down 0-1.
Well, the Dodgers will be seeing Kevin Gausman for the first time this year.
Yep.
And the Blue Jays will be seeing Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the first time this year.
Makes sense.
So do your homework. Take all the artificial ABs you can on your virtual headset at home, getting room service. Soak it up. Soak up the splits. Soak up the heaters. Soak up the bangers. Soak up every bit of what you need to soak up, because game 2 should have a lot of stuff featured on the mound. This is the premier pitching matchup of this series. I am excited for it. I believe that if Yamamoto can go out and have an outing that eliminates any other need other than one or two guys at the back end of this Dodger bullpen, the Dodgers are in a good spot. If things do not go as such, Jay, even as the guy who picked the Dodgers in 5, dare I say it, if you let the Jays get out of town with 2 under their belt early, buddy, it just it feels like the Dodgers are going to have a lot more work ahead of them than they anticipated. And I know that the math just tells you that because it's coming home and you got to win at least 2 at home, because you don't want to go back to the 6 with your tail between your legs trying to battle all the way back, having to win all of them. But we'll see how that goes.
Small sample size alert, probably meaningless, but Max Muncy has recorded 23 plate appearances against Kevin. Small sample size alert, but the Max Muncy has 23 plate appearances against Kevin Gausman in his career and has hit 3 homers and drawn 5 walks along with 2 doubles. So that's a 1423 OPS in 23 plate appearances. So not to make this about me, but if my World Series MVP pick of Max Muncy is going to come true, it probably needs to start sooner rather than later. And Kevin Gausman appears to be historically a good place for it to start. So tune in there. The other side of that coin, though, unfortunately, is that Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani are a combined 3 for 22 against Kevin Gausman. If you want a double silver lining, 2 of those 3 hits have been homers. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we will.
You're saying that's the split. That's all the split is what you're saying.
Yeah. That guy right there, suck on it.
Sometimes that split becomes a long ball, as we know. Kurt, Big Burrito, would tell us all about that, of course, if he was available. He's not, unfortunately. But
see it high, let it fly, barefoot, feet up, hammering a bucket of chicken wings, meant to feed a party of 6, solo to yourself. Love you, Burrito. Didn't want to bring it up. Will Smith leading the charge between you and I in terms of our World Series MVP picks.
Well, they're neither of them are looking particularly good.
Yeah, so. But Will Smith looking significantly better at this point.
Yeah.
Do you have any nugs you would like to allow us to digest?
Yep. Let's rock and roll.
Chef.
4 homers over a 2-game span in a single postseason, which Ohtani has done now. He's the 4th player ever to do that. Nick Castellanos in 2023. Reggie Jackson in 1977 and Bob Robertson in 1971. Again, Ohtani, 6 homers, a triple, and stolen base through the first 11 games in a single postseason all time. That's just him this season and BJ Upton in 2008. To put some specifics on what we were referring to earlier, 9 runs are the 3rd most. This is from Sarah Langs. 9 runs are the 3rd most in a World Series inning, behind only the 1968 Detroit Tigers in the 3rd inning of Game 6, and the 1929 Philadelphia Athletics in Game 4, 7th inning. They scored 10 runs in each of those games. So a truly historic World Series inning for the Blue Jays tonight. Addison Barger's grand slam is the first pinch hit grand slam in World Series history and the 4th pinch hit grand slam in postseason history, regardless of round, joining Miguel Montero in Game 1 of the 2016 NLCS, Ricky Leday in Game 4 of the 1999 ALCS, and Mark Lewis in Game 3 of the 95 NLDS. So a true random ass fucking list of people there. But obviously the turning point. The other fun part about that, obviously, was a pinch hit. It was also lefty-lefty, which Donaldson was all over. Of course, you and him were talking about it. Grand slams in the World Series, left-handed batters versus left-handed pitchers all time. This is just the 7th such example. Freddie Freeman in the 2024 World Series, Game 1 off of Nestor Cortez, obviously just happened. So that is the most recent. Tino Martinez in Game 1 of 98. Kent Herbeck in Game 6 of 87. Jim Northrup in Game 6 of 1968. Joe Pepitone in Game 6 of 64. And Chuck Hiller in Game 4 of 1962. Nathan Lucas's bases loaded walk is the second bases loaded walk in the 6th inning of a Game 1 of the World Series, joining Red Rolfe for the Yankees against the Giants in the all New York World Series in 1937. Dalton Varsho, the first turning point in the game, if you will.
Pissed on.
Yeah, the center fielders with game-tying homers in Game 1 of the World Series all time. That's just Dalton Varsho this year and Devon White in 1993, coincidentally, or not, both Blue Jays. And the homer that Snell allowed to Varsho was his first off of a left-handed or to a left-handed batter since, as Dallas referred to, June of 2024. Just an incredible timing for that. And then to close it out, final nug, the winner of World Series Game 1 has gone on to win 76 of the 120 prior World Series. That's 63%. That includes 24 of the 30 fall classics in the wild card era. So if you believe that kind of stuff matters, which of course winning baseball games does matter, then the Jays, winning one game in a 7-game series matters quite a lot. And history would suggest that the Jays are about 3-1 to go ahead and finish this thing out. Those are the nugs.
Wow. Any final thoughts to follow that, or? I was enjoying not letting you guys, but I was enjoying sitting there listening to you and JD cook for a while. That was a different stream than we have done up until this point, and I thought it was very cool to be a fly on the wall for a lot of that back and forth, and to be able to get in there with a few questions for him as well, and to kind of have him and you spin off from there. It was cool, and I thought that the reception in the chat seemed to suggest that they enjoyed that kind of one-off unique experience as well. Although JD seems like he likes to talk baseball, so maybe he'll come back and talk some more baseball. That's the thing, Jay, is we got ball knowers.
Yeah.
Right. We're just some ball knowers, just a couple of ball knowers. Batman ball knower. Even the
he'll be back
Insane Knights from the discourse, ball knowers.
That's right.
So you get a guy like JD, the bringer of ball knowership into the building. Everybody just kind of sits back and you enjoy listening to a guy like him chat. I loved watching his reaction when you just kind of, dropping nugs on him and contextualizing his place in and his superstardom. Really cool.
For sure.
Yeah. My final thought, better figure it out.
Yep. The next game's tomorrow. Today, actually.
Better figure it out. Need a huge start from Yamamoto. Need a huge start from Yamamoto. You want to come back here. You want to come back home. When I say back here, you want to come back home with a good taste in your mouth, with an opportunity to rest some guys that I believe tomorrow, and it's no question, tomorrow's the day to chase the W for Doc. You got to chase the W. So whatever you need to do with the day off ahead of you to get that thing under your belt, you got to go and do it. It starts with Yamamoto, though. So we'll see how things go. An incredible ball game, Game 1 for the Blue Jays and their offense. Great matchup tomorrow on the mound, as we have highlighted. Gosman Yamamoto, game 2. See if
shout out to my Subaru homies.
Yes, J.A. will catch you at coffee on the hiking trail and in the back of the Subaru. Oh, we'll see you tomorrow. We out.